Evening all. Just a quick walk around on these just a few saws that came in today. Um, and just a quick video basically about rebuilding saws yourself, how to price for them, what to look out for, because it can be tricky business. This is an Mac 970. Bolts came loose on the cylinder, ran lean, scored all the cylinder and piston, and given the price of these, it's just not viable to repair. So that's that one. This one we know what happened because the saw was given to somebody as a loan, and they put straight mixture in it, or straight petrol, no two stroke. So we know exactly what caused that, and that's easy to sort out. And then you can get saws like this one. This is another 455 Rancher that needed a carb rebuild. It had impulse line issue down here, down to the cylinder. It had a bad seal on the clutch side, crank seal, there. It was just a mess. And this is how you can get caught out. We also had some fuel line issues here as well. And as well as that, whoever worked on it before, and it's easy happen. You have these bolts that fix the carburetor to this intake boot here, and of course this is plastic, so the more times this is on and off and messing around, arsing around, it's just going to wear out the threads on this guy here, and you can get a small air leak here, which is not good either. So very quickly, a very simple kind of cylinder replacement with a piston and a carb job can go on and on and on. So just be mindful of that. When somebody asks for a price on how to for a 455 Rancher or any saw where there's still any of the still Husky models, you can price for a new spark plug, cylinder and piston kit. Always use a new wrist pin bearing on that top end. You can see it here. Always get a new bearing for that. So again, you can price for piston, rings, cylinder, bearing, plug, and a carb kit. Now you have to do the carb on these when you rebuild the saw, because if somebody comes back and says, look, the saw is after season again, or something happened, or even if it's their own fault, they'll try and find a way out of it to pass the buck. If they give it to somebody else, they'll say, oh well, that carb wasn't rebuilt, it's very dirty, it couldn't have been rebuilt, and then you're looking at another bill. You're going to have to cover the cost of it. So you got to be very careful. So again, you can price for those things that I mentioned, but that's it. You don't know what else is going to go on here. But when you get the saw in, the best thing to do is just take off the muffler off the front. You can have a look through the port and see any scoring to the piston. At least that gives you a head start. But as for promising a price for anything else, just forget about it. It's just not possible. Sometimes it's a good idea too. I replace these for what they cost. Replace the primer bulb as well. It's a good idea. When you find a lot of these saws comes in, the air filters stink. Nobody thinks of cleaning them out. They are gone bad. You probably need a new filter. And the saw's in a mess. The sawdust everywhere. You got to clean it all up. So very quickly the bill can get out of hand. But if you're working on these saws yourself, or people are looking for prices, just be careful, because you can very, very quickly go be in a world of shit, because especially if you go for OEM parts, genuine Husqvarna parts for that cylinder for 455 Ranchers, they wouldn't be cheap, and if you do something, or you just don't bother doing the carb, or you miss something silly and it seizes again, it's going to cost you big time. But the same kind of rule applies for most chainsaws as well as consaws. This one here is TS400. Again, it just looked like a simple carb rebuild, and now it's going into fuel lines, impulse line. At this stage, I'm going to have to get all this off. I'm going to have to get into the cylinder and do a leak down test to see am I losing any pressure out through the crank seals. And another good way, when you get a saw in like this, what you can do is, with your left hand, with the spark plug out, you can see that I'm doing there. I'm pressing down on the saw here. And with your right hand, Sorry, my fingernail's getting in the way there. You're going to turn the crankshaft there, so there's no restriction anywhere. It's a bit tight there because of the start of Paul's just catching on the restart there, but there. And what you're going to do is you're going to, at the very center of that shaft here, not out here, not the clutch drum, right here, you're going to catch that between your two fingers while you're pressing down on the saw with your left hand, and you're going to wiggle up and down to see is there any movement. Because if you have movement here, what means is your bearings are gone, and if the bearings are gone, then that's a bigger job again, because you got to split the saw, and then when you do bearings, you may as well do seals, and so again, the job becomes more expensive. And sometimes if you forget to leave that information out, and you're almost through the saw, and then you realize you have more issues, you have to strip the saw again. You can get customers saying, well, you said all it needed was just this and that, and that's all I'm paying for. So just be mindful of that, because parts can be costly, especially OEM. But there's some of the saws in. There's a lot of stuff coming in now. It's chainsaw season. So this is going to keep me busy for tonight, tomorrow anyway. Good saws, two 455 Ranchers if you have one. They're well able to cut, well capable saws. Like what kills a lot of these saws is air filters. They come in and they're in bits. They're just manky. They don't be cleaned out. Air filters are essential just to, for keeping this machine running right, or any chainsaw, anything, any engine, air filter. And when you're pricing with these saws as well, you got to have a look around. Is the muffler okay? Does it need a new clutch? Is the carb in fact just gone beyond it, too old? Like a genuine carb for this, for a 455 Rancher, is about €70, so they're not cheap. You got to tell the customer what conditions he's bar and chain in. If they're really bad conditions, so he has a bar and chain on top of the whole price. So it can quickly become non-viable to repair, So just check all those things before you commit and you spend your money, and to be wasted in the end. But that's pretty much it, guys. Just a kind of a quick thing, just to be careful when you're working on these, because you can get stung pretty quick. The things to look out for, really. That's pretty much it. But as I said, just go around the saw. When you're rebuilding as well, always take out this decomp valve here, clean it, put it back in, use a new washer if you have to. Always use a little, of course, when you're putting these bolts down on these saws, this guy here, the compression release, everything really, even these bolts that I pass through these here, I put a little drop of thread locker on them. It's essential, because once they come loose, and they do, eventually your saw will start drawing air or running lean, and then score up, overheat. Another thing you'll find as well on some of the older saws, on some model saws, is the coil itself, the electrical coil that comes from to feed your spark plug up here, is that it can be bolted to the side of the some of them are actually bolted to the side of the cylinder. And the problem with that is when the saw overheats, that heat transfers into the coil and overheat the coil, and you can rebuild the saw. It'll work maybe okay for a few days, a week or so, and I've seen it many times where the coil just packs in then, because it just got too hot, so it's starting to break down, or every time the heat builds up in the saw, it starts misfiring and just breaking down, and that's another expense. So given that if you had a saw that had a coil issue, maybe a car, you'd have to do the carb rebuild anyway, but had bearings or seals issues, depending on the saw, it's 9 times out of 10 here where it comes in, it's kind of non-viable. Like there's too much expense to go into it. So that's pretty much it, guys. Just to keep an eye on those things when you're rebuilding saws, and you'll do good. See you later.